evening. Here's top news newsletter, starting with the headline. Militant violence in Afghanistan. Russia calls on UN humanitarian agency to coordinate with Syrian government. Al-Jafari, hundreds of reports unveiled Saudi and Qatari regimes' involvement in igniting violence in Syria. Taliban-fueled violence continues to inflict heavy losses on US-led foreign soldiers and civilians in Afghanistan over a decade after the US-led invasion of the country. Increasing the militant attacks comes as Kabul and Washington recently signed the so-called bilateral security agreement, under which nearly 11,000 US-led troops remain in Afghanistan beyond the 2014 deadline for the withdrawal of foreign troops from the country. The Taliban militant group has vowed to escalate the attack on Afghan forces and US-led troops and diplomatic mission before the foreign forces exit the country at the end of this year. Ghani Hakmal meanwhile attributed the US-led forces' failure to stem the tide of Taliban violence to the US military operations like nighttime raids on Afghan homes that usually cause civilian death, adding that they have created a huge gap between local people and foreign troops on the ground. In Syrian file, the Russia's foreign minister called upon UN humanitarian organizations to continue cooperation with Syrian government and timely notify the letter of volume and the nature of the humanitarian consignment bound for Syria. The ministry added that Russia has supported the UNSC draft resolution number 2191 on the humanitarian situation in Syria, with a view to employ all the tools of disposal of the international community to alleviate the suffering of Syrian civilians. It noted that Russia from the very beginning has called for adopting a resolution which allows monitoring the loading of all humanitarian relief consignments of the United Nations Humanitarian Agency from neighboring countries, based on the need of cooperation between the Syrian government and international agencies. Moscow reckons on the United Nations Humanitarian Agency responsible for directing aid to the Syrian Arab Republic to continue to engage closely with Damascus. We also hope that such measures will contribute to the implementation of peaceful settlement effort by UN Special Envoy for Syria, Stefan de Mistura, Russian Foreign Minister said. The UNSC adopted to renew its decision on the issue of delivering of humanitarian aid for Syria. The permanent envoy to the UN Bashar al-Jafari said that the draft resolution submitted by the Qatari and Saudi regimes, which criticize the state of human rights in Syria, is an odd paradox and mockery, referring to the hundreds of reports and statements that involved the range of the Saudi and Qatari regimes' involvement in igniting violence and bringing international terrorism into Syria. He referred to scores of Western reports that document the way through which Qatari institutions help terrorism, make money laundering, and providing job opportunities for main personalities connected to terrorism. While representatives of Qatari and Saudi regimes call in their draft resolution, especially in Article 24, for holding a democratic, pluralistic and civil state where women has active participation, the legitimate question would be where is the Saudi or Qatari implementation for those legitimate calls on their people who live under sheikdoms that have never heard for any parliament or constitution, Al-Jafari wondered. He added the criminal practices of the Saudi authority against the women have reached to the Syrian girls who lived in the refugee camps of the neighboring countries. Al-Jafari affirmed for 3 years governments of the state that submitted the draft resolution have kept to their bias and denial of the existence of terrorism in Syria, rejecting any positive signal to Syria's efforts, and today they woke up lately not to acknowledge the danger of terrorism on Syria and the region, but to go out of the embarrassment corner those governments have put themselves in. He added that the Qatari and Saudi regimes have bought everything including the UN Center on Counter-Terrorism. Al-Jafari urged the UN member countries to reconsider their voting and vote against the draft resolution. Talking about the Russia views, UN introduced discriminatory sanctions on Russia's Crimea. Having slapped Crimea and Sevastopol with the new investment restrictions, the EU stopped short of introducing a new sanction against Russian mainland, with political heavyweights including France and Germany cautiously hinting at possible policy reversal. The EU summit in Brussels have a day earlier than planned, with European leaders opting against introducing a new set of sanctions on Moscow, while a number of delegations spoke in favor of new measures. The bloc political heavyweights urged caution. The EU's new foreign policy chief warned that imposing more sanctions on Russia may hurt the European economy even further. German Chancellor Angela Merkel, whose country's financial and industrial might serve as pillar of the EU, urged members to place more trust in Russian President Vladimir Putin. If the Russian president says he is committed to the territorial integrity of Ukraine, we have to trust his word and work on it, Merkel said after the EU summit in Brussels, referring to the recent telephone conversations with the leaders of Germany, France and Ukraine. That's all for today. Thanks for joining us. I'm Inas Ahmad. Good night.